For 40 years, the Three Stooges entertained audiences from the large screen, small screen, and stage. Their face-slapping, eye-poking, head-bonking antics still entertain millions of viewers around the world today. Just about everyone familiar with the comedy team knows they consisted of Moe Howard, Larry Fine, and a succession of Third Stooges. Jerry Howard, better known as Curly, Shemp Howard, Joe Besser, and Joe DeRita, who took on the moniker of Curly Joe. But did you know there were other comic actors asked to be the third Stooge, and one that almost got the position twice? I'm Lew Ojeda, and let's talk about it in this edition of Mediatrocities. After 36 years of shorts, features, a kids' TV show, many commercials, and live stage performances, the Three Stooges finally found the fame and respect they worked very hard for. The trio were among the highest paid entertainers in the 1960s. But by 1970, changes were coming. The Stooges were, of course, aging, and the numerous injuries were slowing the trio down. For years, Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe decreased the number of their face slaps, eye pokes, and head bonks, and relied more on their innate sense of timing, with general bumbling, stumbling, and verbal joking. For the start of the new decade, writer-director Norman Maurer created a TV pilot with the Stooges called Kooks Tour. In it, Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe are retired from showbiz and head out to the American West for some fun and relaxation along with their pet dog, Moose. Most of the footage for the pilot was completed when in January 1970, Larry Fine suffered a debilitating stroke, thereby ending his career. Or did it? More on that aspect later. The remaining footage of Kooks Tour had to be padded with scenic travel footage and extended shots of Moose running in the woods. Left with a 1-hour pilot and no prospect to get a viable series out of it, Kooks Tour languished in obscurity and was eventually released to the public, first to the Super 8mm home movie market, and eventually to VHS and DVD. With Larry out of the trio, Moe Howard, who handled managing the Stooges' business affairs, retired. He did, however, keep the options open for jumping back into show business. It wasn't as though Moe Howard was new to unexpected changes in the Stooges. He lost Curly through a series of strokes, and Shemp to a sudden massive heart attack. Columbia Studios' rejection of Moe and Larry's pitch as the Two Stooges forced Moe to find a suitable third Stooge. When Curly suffered a stroke, shorts director Jules White invited rising comic star of the Catskills, Buddy Hackett, to join the trio. However, with a wife and second child on the way, he didn't want to make the journey to the West Coast and, as he put it, asked the other two Stooges, "How are you feeling?" Moe then settled with older brother Shemp Howard. After Shemp's death, Moe seriously considered Mantan Moreland for the third Stooge. Moreland made a series of popular movie appearances in the 1930s and 40s, and although he was a supporting actor in almost all of them, he stole every scene in which he appeared. He was most famous for a great comedy routine called Infinite Talk, where he and comedy partner Ben Carter would finish each other's sentences and never reach a subject.
Well, if it ain't,
Ben Carter's my name.
Benjamin Carter, yeah. Boy, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you since...
Longer than that.
Yeah?
The last time I saw you, you was living over...
Oh, I moved from there.
Yeah?
Sure, I moved over to,
How can you live in that neighborhood?
I don't know.
Now, where I'm living, I only pay...
It ain't that cheap, is it?
Sure it is.
Hey, look here.
What?
Is you still married?
No, I divorced her.
Yeah? I know you have a lot of...
You got me wrong. You got me wrong. I got married again.
No kidding.
I sure did.
Yeah?
Say, not changing the subject. Have you got a...
No, I don't smoke.
No.
Hey, look here. Wasn't you in the...
Yeah, but I got an honorable discharge.
You did?
I sure did.
What was the matter?
Well, I developed a kind of...
Oh, that's a terrible pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts right along...
No, more in the back.
Yeah? What are you doing for it?
Well, I was taking some...
Don't take them, Ben. They'll make you sleep.
Yeah?
Sure. Now, what you should have taken...
I did.
You know what?
What?
That's how come I like to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because me and you seem to agree with each other.
We sure do it.
Yeah.
Moreland was reportedly very enthusiastic about joining the Stooges, but according to Mo Howard, Columbia Studios insisted on signing somebody already under contract to them, and, oh yeah, somebody white. So Joe Besser was chosen instead. After the studio rejection, Moreland continued his infinite talk routines with other African American comics such as Nipsey Russell. With the Stooges looking for more non-violent forms of comedy, and Moreland's chance to be an acting equal alongside white colleagues without having to play a servant, this was definitely a lost opportunity. Illness forced Larry Fine out of the Stooges in 1970, and Mo decided to retire. But it wasn't necessarily a permanent retirement. He could be coaxed into a comeback given the right material and conditions. One script getting Mo's attention was written by his grandson, Jeffrey Maurer Scott. In the prospective movie Make Love, Not War, the Three Stooges are POWs in a World War II Japanese prison camp and help with a fellow prisoner's escape plan. Joining Mo and Curly Joe and replacing the ailing Larry would be Emil Sitka. Sitka seemed a natural choice for several reasons. He was a well-seasoned actor with hundreds of performances on stage and screen, including appearances in about 40 of the Stooge shorts and feature films. In fact, he's been referred to as the Fourth Stooge because of his solid comic timing and great ability to be a foil. He definitely took it like a Stooge in the 1955 short Gypped in the Penthouse.
Why, you rat.
Oh, yeah?
Take it
You
easy
call
now.
a rat, eh?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie boy.
nice guy.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm
you're
sorry.
And it was Sitka who uttered one of the most famous lines in all Three Stooges film history.
Hold hands, you lovebirds.
Unfortunately, the proposed new film Make Love, Not War seemed like the wrong film at the wrong time. The reality of the Vietnam War and student unrest opposing it made the prospect of the aging Stooges in a World War II dark comedy a shaky risk at best. Besides, the Stooges had another problem looming. In the late 1960s, a wave of TV reform movements targeting children's programming swept the country. Groups like the PTA and Action for Children's Television, or ACT, fought against the over-commercialization of kids' programming.
In seconds, the red-hot lava would reach him, but the action shoes got Johnny there first. Race was saved thanks to Johnny Quest and his action shoes, PF Flyers.
They also targeted the violence in such cartoons as The Fantastic Four, Space Ghost, and the very weird Super President. Yes, the President of the United States becomes a superhero and pummels enemies. The Three Stooges were caught in this crossfire. Despite having already softened their act in later years, their classic black and white shorts were still hits on local kids' shows across the country. However, that success could not be taken for granted. ACT pressured government officials so forcefully that TV networks took many superhero cartoons like The Fantastic Four, Space Ghost, Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, The Herculoids, and Super President all off the air by 1970. So instead of having a quiet retirement, Mo Howard made personal appearances and fought to keep the original Three Stooges shorts from being banned on television.
Do you ever get letters from mothers, irate mothers, saying, "How dare you do
never,
that?"
Never irate mothers. Confused parent-teachers associations. They are isolated cases. And this child psychologist, where they took the shows off in Cleveland on account of it,
Yeah.
they got this child psychologist and asked her, could anything that the Stooges do in their films hurt a child and cause them to do things that normally they wouldn't? She says, no, I'm a lover of the Stooges myself. But if a family has a problem child, then it doesn't make any difference that you'll watch a Western where they're killing people, they're liable to grab a gun and kill somebody. But a normal child never gets anything difficult out of the Stooge comedies.
Although the Three Stooges were not critical darlings, they've always had devoted fans. One of those fans was producer Samuel Sherman, who, along with business partner and director Al Adamson, created Independent International Pictures, which specialized in low-budget movies screened outside New York and LA.
How long has it been since you've held a pretty young girl in your arms? The naughty stewardesses would like to take care of your problem.
Finding success with the sexploitation picture The Naughty Stewardesses, Sherman made plans for a sequel called The Jet Set. But his desire for creating a 1940s-style Western relocated the stewardesses from airplanes to a gambling ranch with Yvonne DiCarlo, best known as Lily Munster from the Munsters TV series, as the swingers' ranch madam. Sherman had a knack for signing up actors who were either notoriously elusive, such as the former Western star Bob Livingston, or seriously ill, such as J. Carrol Naish and Lon Chaney Jr. Thus, he felt even with Larry Fine's stroke, he could find a way of getting the Three Stooges in his new movie. Deciding that Larry would end up being the toughest to convince, Sherman contacted him first. Larry was initially skeptical about the idea of a comeback with Moe and Curly Joe, but Sherman convinced him of never having to even get out of his chair for any scene. With Larry telling Sherman, "Call Moe," the producer was getting closer to making the return of the Three Stooges a reality. Sherman contacted Moe and found him eager to get back to performing and save the Stooges' legacy. The new movie and the Three Stooges' comeback were on their way. Now, if you were wondering if Moe and Curly Joe were going to launch Larry in his wheelchair jackass style, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Instead, Sam Sherman offered ideas centered around the shenanigans of Moe and Curly Joe. Idea number 1. The Three Stooges are shabbily dressed hobos walking down a dusty western road. They're carrying packs on their backs with all their possessions. They complain about being hungry and then stop and see a sign reading, Lucky Dollar Ranch. Convincing themselves the ranch needs a masseur, Curly Joe, and a hairstylist, Moe, they set off to the ranch to seek employment. Idea number 2. Rich young man stops by to get a haircut from Moe and gets the classic Stooge hot towel treatment, and, of course, a rotten hairstyle. Idea number 3. A beautiful rich young woman stops by for a hairdo. She gets chloroformed. Her hair is so badly done, Moe and Curly Joe decide to shave her head, shine it with black shoe polish, and convince her it's the latest trend. Progress seemed good for the Jet Set when the project was hit with a mighty blow. Larry Fine suffered another stroke on October 4th, 1974, and was placed in intensive care. On January 24th, 1975, he was dead. Samuel Sherman panicked he could never get the Stooges together again. But Moe's son-in-law manager Norman Maurer presented an alternative. Enter Emil Sitka again. Sitka could get his hair done up to resemble Larry Fine's, and he could be billed as Larry's brother Harry. Sherman was hesitant about the idea, but regained his excitement once he received promotional photos from the new trio. Sporting garish outfits and taking a comic pose with an oversized clothespin, the new reworking of the Three Stooges exuded the charm of the old. It was easy to see why Sherman was smitten again. So the new Three Stooges, Moe Howard, Curly Joe DeRita, and Emil Sitka, prepared for their comeback. Howard held meetings with Sherman and Maurer, and, despite looking thin and frail, contributed new ideas the Stooges could use in a new film, now dubbed Blazing Stewardesses, to capitalize on the success of Mel Brooks's massive new comedy hit Blazing Saddles. When Sitka asked about rehearsals, Moe Howard insisted the trio improvise. Blazing Stewardesses went into the film phase, and despite the Stooges not having to appear until the 4th day of shooting, Moe Howard was a repeated no-show. Director Al Adamson was forced to shoot around the trio, while Sherman desperately tried to find out why Moe was avoiding the set. Howard remained evasive about how ill he actually was. He assured Sherman he would get better, as he truly did not want to let him down. Sherman even offered to film at his residence for a couple of hours, with Curly Joe and Emil carrying the brunt of the action. Anything to get the Three Stooges on screen again. Moe's reply of, maybe, must not have been that reassuring. Indeed, Maurer finally contacted Sherman and told him, I don't think he'll be able to do it. What Sherman, Sitka, and others did not realize was that Moe Howard was going through stage 4 lung cancer. He was finally hospitalized and died on May 4th, 1975. Realizing he could not cobble together a Three Stooges that audiences would accept, Sherman scrambled to find a replacement comedy act. He signed the Ritz Brothers, who gained fame as a trio, but ironically were working as a duo after eldest brother Al died in 1965.
Let's go get her. Not there by her legs!
Buddy Hackett, after declining Jules White's invite to become a Stooge, went on to a very solid career in stand-up comedy, movies, and TV, where he's probably most famous now for cracking up Johnny Carson with old-style blue jokes.
And the doctor said, "That's impossible, those have been destroyed."
After almost becoming Shemp Howard's replacement, Mantan Moreland suffered a stroke in the early 1960s and took on a few smaller roles and uncredited appearances in films and TV shows.
Morning, Mr. Gerber.
Oh, morning, Joe. How goes it?
Oh, okay.
Any rioting in the neighborhood last night? I don't see any broken windows. What's the matter? This place ain't good enough to loot?
The usual, Mr. Gerber.
Oh, yes, but make mine a double. I'm feeling a bit under par this morning.
Oh, one double Polynesian health juice. Coming up.
He even recorded outrageously explicit comedy albums with partner Living Good Pratt in the late 1960s. Moreland died in 1973 and has since been recognized as a legendary comic celebrated by acts such as the Beastie Boys with their song B-Boys Makin' with the Freak Freak. This left Sitka, who, although retired, had the most experience working with the Stooges and became the unofficial ambassador for the trio. He spoke at Three Stooges screenings, conventions, expos, and helped to get a long overdue star for the Three Stooges on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
One time, Shemp and I ate at the Brown Derby here, and as we crossed from that sidewalk over there, I noticed that Jules White, the producer, had a star there. I mentioned to Shemp, shouldn't you be having one? And he said, what for? People will only walk on it.
He made a few appearances in movies written by Sam Raimi, the Coen brothers, and Lawrence Bender, fans who, if they couldn't get the actual Three Stooges, could get the next best thing, an embodiment of the undying Stooge spirit, a reminder of comedy everlasting. Emil Sitka died on January 16, 1998. His grave marker was etched with his most famous line, "Hold hands, you lovebirds." Sitka made an appearance as a contestant on Let's Make a Deal in 1985 that, for me, turns out to have heartbreaking poignancy. Host Monty Hall immediately recognized a picture of silent comic legend Ben Turpin illustrated on a poster Sitka was holding, but fumbles on trying to recognize Sitka's last name with someone else famous.
Ben Turpin. Ben Turpin. Remember Ben Turpin from the silent days? You were there, weren't you, Bernie? Yes, you were his co-star. This is Emil Sitka. Right. That's the same name as a guy that plays basketball, right? What's the name? What's the name of the guy that plays basketball for Seattle?
Watching this, I had to wonder how Emil was able to hold it together and not speak out that he starred in almost 40 Stooge shorts, almost became a Stooge twice, and was dubbed the Fourth Stooge. He almost certainly would have received applause from the audience, since just a year before, the Three Stooges experienced a resurgence of attention due to sales in the new VHS home video market. Perhaps it was humility, perhaps the excitement of the game show, but whatever it was, he stood there and took it like a stooge.
I'm going to let you have what's in the box on the display floor, where Melanie stands right now. Inside the box, you own 2 items. I'll buy them back for $250 each, $500. Or you can have the 2 items. You want the 2 items, or you want the 500?
I'll take the 500.
You take the 500, there's your 500. What were the 2 items in this case? The last 4 items were great. These 2 items are 2 old garbage cans. His and hers garbage cans.
Well, at least he got $500 out of it. Do you have a favorite Three Stooges short or feature film? If so, share it with us in the comments below. Thank you for watching Mediatrocities, and subscribe for more adventures and entertainment. Chicago's longest-running TV program of DIY filmmakers, musicians, artists, comics, and more is called Cinema Obscura. And if you're not watching, you're missing out on tomorrow's media talent today. If you're in Chicago, you can watch on Public Access Can TV or like their Facebook page to get access to all the programs. Support independent media and their creators.